show. We are kicking off a series of media leader interviews over the next few weeks. We'll dive into the hot topic of AI optimization within not only media buys within the walled gardens of Meta and Google and some of the others, but more importantly, how AI is optimizing creative and what that means for the future of media buying. Today, I have an exciting guest for you. Sandra Leung is the VP in Search and Media Operations at Cosmo5, a digital marketing executive. Cosmo5 is a digital agency and performance media partner that specializes in paid search, programmatic, media strategy, and growth analytics for scaling brands. In her leadership role at Cosmo5, Sandra oversees search operations, campaign performance frameworks, cross-channel media execution, and she focuses on optimizing paid acquisition channels, streamlining search strategy, and driving measurable ROI through data-driven media ops and emerging martech. Sandra, thanks so much for coming on the show and diving into this topic with me.
Glad to be here. I sound very, very fancy with your introduction, so I'm pretty excited to have a conversation with you. Hopefully I can live up to it.
No, I'm sure you'll be great. So, before we get into the meat of the subject matter at hand, would love to, dive through your bio a little bit. So,
Sure.
Where'd you grow up? What'd you study? And how'd you get into performance marketing?
Oh, it's a long, convoluted path. I was born in Texas. And then after that, my father worked for the government. So I was basically a military brat. I've lived on many continents. This includes obviously the US, Guam, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Hong Kong. So, it's run a gamut of experience before I hit the age of 13.
Wow. What a cool background.
Yeah. So basically I'm a little bit of a social chameleon, adaptable, that sort of thing. I actually started off doing scientific research. I came stateside to the US in high school and then never left, basically. So I was all about the scientific method, research, discovery, hypothesis, frameworks. And for a very long time, I was actually, I got my PhD. I did a lot of academic research. I'm very honored to have part of my research, part of like a Nobel Prize winning research. So went far with it, but then pivoted because of basically burnout and wanted to. Yeah, it happens not just in advertising, but also in academia. I know it's interesting, but we basically I wanted to pivot into something else, and my brother-in-law was like, "Why don't you come into doing search advertising? I think your brain fits it." And it's like, I don't know anything about advertising. I don't know what's going on. And then from that point on, I learned the ropes, and I realized that you can't necessarily apply scientific method, but you can a lot of it is experimentation, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and how you can basically say, I want this and I want this outcome, and then hopefully you succeed. So I've done a bunch of advertising, mostly for paid search and across different verticals. Started off with pharma, obviously, because I was in the medical field, in the bio research field. And so got recruited here. My side passion was beauty. Started working for large CPG companies as well in advertising. And now I can master of some trades, like jack of all some trades and master of none. So basically that's how I ended up at Cosmo5.
And then were you at other agencies before Cosmo5, in-house at brands? Okay, got it.
Yes, only on agency side. So it was
very cool.
That's where there was a lot of pharma, worked with large pharma companies. It was very interesting, was able to work in the whole legal, medical, and restriction aspect of how do you advertise when the U.S. is basically the only country that allows for pharma advertising, and what can you do to get around it versus, what are your KPIs, which are very different from, an e-com company that was like, all we want is revenue. All we want is, so it's just different ways of looking at the advertising model. And it was both fun and, very restrictive. So they're like, oh, we got clicks. That's great. Now you're like, oh, we have revenue. That's great. So,
well, I think your perspective on regulated industries is going to be even more relevant now that I think about it to the AI conversation. So I think that'll be exciting. So, all right. Well, I think we'll jump into it then, and then we may, come back to some other questions that I have outside of the key topic. But I want to put it at the head of the show because I think it's important for the folks that are tuning in for that reason. So, I came across this Substack a few weeks ago where the writer was discussing the idea of we know AI has been optimizing inside of these walled gardens. There are Advantage Plus is a popular way to buy media inside of Meta. Recently, Google just rolled out this new Google AI or AI Max. I can't remember the exact terminology, but I know that Google is your area of specificity and expertise. So I'm sure you're aware of the updates. But I think we all kind of have assumed for a long time that AI and machine learning, before AI was a sexy, cool term, was helping optimize buys, and data science was kind of being performed behind the scenes via the algorithm to make sure we were always finding the right customers at the right moment. But what was new to the conversation was the optimization of creative. So the idea that, at any moment, these platforms are asking you to opt into permissions, saying that they can change a title, change a tag, change copy. They can even change background images. And then, I wonder, as it continues to become more and more pervasive, does creative just kind of become this amalgamated thing that can just be optimized at any moment? And, your experience in pharma and medical and regulated industries, I think, is prescient, because really the biggest concern is, what if AI makes a change to a piece of creative and then you're no longer in compliance? Who is responsible for that? Well, the platforms are saying that you as the advertiser are responsible for that, even if the AI makes a mistake that then puts you in FTC violation. So I know that's a mouthful, but maybe you can jump in with some thoughts. And, what do you think? What do you think is the right amount of optimization as AI models continue to evolve inside of these gardens?
Sure. So I'm going to just say algorithms are, shit in, shit out, that sort of philosophy that still applies even when you're doing advertising. I remember way back when, before the AI and PMAX came in, we were able to do what they call smart shopping, which is where they're like, trust the system. Let's see what happens. It was remarkable because it was using whatever cues that they were putting in order to have this great success at efficient costs. We're like, oh, this is great. Let's keep on going. It started faltering a little bit. And eventually it got replaced. Smart shopping got replaced by Performance Max, where they were like, okay, I'm not going to say that we're going to hide it, but we're going to put it across more properties, and we're going to hope that you're able to get the same amount of performance. I can't say that that's true or false, but it's a very funny 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because Google is promoting all of these AI based campaigns, and at the same time they're like, oh, but if you want to guarantee performance, also please activate these older campaign types that we know that you can control. So we normally do a hybrid approach, because we can only test into whatever algorithm each of those campaign types or bidding optimizations work. So we basically kind of jerry rig the system so that we're like, okay, we can attack audiences or show our ads to specific audiences, but we know there's this whole other thing that they opt out. They don't want to be followed, so we have to track them in some way or appeal to them in some way. So not that it becomes a fully bloated account, but we know that there is a touch of old, touch of new. For pharma, while we do have that same experience, it's so heavily regulated that there are a lot of Google concessions where we cannot opt in. So the HIPAA violations, you can't track, you can't put audiences in, you can't do any sort of automated types that rely on a lot of those inputs. So basically, for the most part, many pharma companies are just happy to get the activity because they can't.
Interesting. So they just get, so in pharma, it's as simple as just being allowed to advertise on the platform is enough for them.
Exactly. They're like, we can't. Yeah, every. I mean, I was in a lot of sessions where they would have it's MLR or whatever they used to call it, where you would literally listen to them. They're like, this arrow needs to point this way, but are you sure that it's pointing to the right direction, or should we switch it? It's like minute details of how their advertisements and their products are being portrayed. So they live in a separate box. We don't have to, Google always has to have manual controls in place without AI because pharmaceutical spends a lot of money, and definitely in the US, but they recognize that we can't use a lot of it because it's a HIPAA violation. It's a privacy violation. So,
I was going to say, do you think, do other categories, do you think have to rely on that same kind of, opting out, like financial services comes to mind?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. There are some industries that have the same controls that need to be, but you can't say anything that could potentially put you in a lawsuit or make false claims. So when you're talking, even with like healthcare adjacent, where I'm in beauty and they're like, oh, we can't make that claim because it's not within the, we can't guarantee that your hair will grow faster in 20 days. That sort of claim. So yes, absolutely. There are plenty of other of industries where it's enforced that you are not able to use the full funnel of the AI approach on advertising platforms.
Got it. So do you think that this Substack writer, there's a lot of journalists that just kind of write things for clicks, but it sounds like what you're saying is that really the idea that a regulated industry, which might, do something through AI creative optimization, and then put them afoul of the FTC, that probably wouldn't be happening because none of these regulated industries opt into any of the AI Google products. They basically just run kind of old school reach and frequency and top of funnel metrics campaigns.
Yes. But I'm not going to name any names, but I have seen a point where they let non-regulated, they didn't allow for AI to modify their copy, but it ended up doing it and it translated it incorrectly during a live stream, and they caught it, and there's serious repercussions because it was not advertising their brand. It was advertising something completely different. And I'm pretty sure the platform denies any accountability for that. I'm not going to get into the exact, what I'm not even going to touch that, but we're fully aware that mistakes happen and they have very serious repercussions, even if it's not regulated.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? So, like in a regulated industry, in a non-regulated industry, there are still guidelines in regards to what you can and cannot say as far as making claims. Like if I'm saying that this can of kombucha cures cancer, even if kombucha isn't regulated, I've now made a claim that is unsubstantiated, that I can't back up, and I'm so basically, if AI is modifying creative, modifying taglines, modifying copies, modifying titles to what they think is very compelling, and maybe they think like, oh, like saying that this kombucha can cure cancer, that's super compelling, people are going to buy. But even in more subtle things like guarantees gut health or something like that. So you're seeing that, you've seen examples of AI copy optimization that have, basically done things that would put a advertiser in risk.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And especially when you're making claims, not even within, any of the regulated areas, curing cancer, in beauty specifically. And there are a lot of influencers who get, the false advertising claims, pushed on them, where if you were to use AI to generate any content, you have to be careful because you cannot misportray the actual benefits of the product that you're using. The simple thing is mascara. You can't just paint on fake lashes, because that would violate the claim of having a better product. So absolutely, we have to tread carefully. And the Substack writer definitely has a point. There is no accounting for the advertiser or us, the agency, not being aware of trying to put walled gardens around the walled gardens, because we know for sure that so much misinformation is being propagated that we cannot in good faith put that out for our clients. So yes, absolutely, it's a definite guardrail that we have to impose in this day and age.
That's so interesting. Well, I have a couple of follow-ups on that. One is I'm going to do two follow-ups. One is in regards to brands, and then the other is in regards to the role of the media agency. Let's start with the role of the media agency. So in a world where these walled gardens are going to become more and more AI driven as far as optimization at the placement, the placement and the audience level, the signals that are being used in the media by itself, and in the finding and the targeting of the consumer, but then also in the creative world, is a media agency's job going to be essentially policing AI? Is that going to be a big part of the role moving forward, on just kind of watching these campaigns as close to you can in real time to make sure that these optimizations that they're making don't fall afoul of rules and regulations, or are maybe just the right decision? There's a lot of things that AI suggests that you do that you might not want to do. So should it be AI? Should the methodology be prompting the agency or the ad operator to look at a particular optimization and then clicking thumbs up, thumbs down? Like, what do you think is the way that the media agency should be in the loop and still have, hands on keyboards or hands on the wheel, so to speak?
Yeah. I'm of a mixed opinion about all of that. First of all, I'm going to refer back to the fact that we have to make workarounds in order to make sure that we have enough of our media focused not only on AI models, but also known performers, so that we can generate the business and the volume that is required. Additionally, what was your question about? I'm sorry, I lost.
No, totally fine. So basically you're talking about like having a healthy media mix inside of the campaign of both new features and tried and true. Right. I wonder, as more and more of the optimization opportunities, whether it's placement level or creative level, should the media agency's role basically be watching an AI campaign, and then the AI campaign comes up and says, hey, change this tagline, make this background green to blue, add this micro audience. Should the media agency's role be evaluating these optimization opportunities and then basically, being the human in the loop to say, yes, this one makes sense, this one doesn't?
It's a mix. It's a mix of everything. It's a mix of being smart about what we have to. We're the human that is able to understand the intent of what we want to advertise. The AI is and should always be used as a tool to help benefit the performance. But as is in its nascent form, we should always trust and not trust and verify everything that occurs. But that is a standard order of business when we're managing other people's business media anyway. It just happens to be another layer. We just add more guardrails to say, okay, is this approved? Is this not approved? And what's great about Google, at least, is that I complain all the time. I'm like, this is bullshit. You should fix this. I don't understand why you're black boxing this information. And the good thing is they listen.
Interesting.
It's the most important thing, because they're like, if enough people complain, they recognize that they can't just say, trust that we're delivering performance. They're like, okay, you want to see what the search terms are. You want to see which ones are AI activated search terms. So the other thing that they've introduced are guidelines. So for example, if you activate AI Max, which is a component that was already activated in Performance Max, you can put in, you can't use these words. You have to use this sort of brand voice. They listen. They're like, okay, what is the brand voice? What does the brand look like? And it's for the same reason that the brand teaches us. We can teach the platforms to do what we want them to do. There will always be mistakes, and I've already cited the ones that we caught. But if you can imagine how many billions of searches and impressions that we can't keep a hold of and catch, we can't catch everything. We can only catch whatever we're able to see. So to Google's credit, they're like, okay, we're going to show you everything on the back end to the best of our ability. We can't show you the billions of searches, but we can show you the things that actually performed, and you can say yes, no to that. So for AI Max, they listened. They said, okay, we want to basically take your website and take some keywords, and then we're going to best match everything to the parts of your website. They listen and they're like, okay, we can't have target certain pages. That the ad message is incorrect. We can remove that. So it's like a continuing refining of optimizations that occur even if it were like keyword level or bid level. So it doesn't change. It just makes the work not harder, just more laborious sometimes. So it's a good benefit. I don't think the agency's role changes that much. It just adds more work to that agency.
Yeah, which is funny because the promise of AI was less work, right?
Yes.
All right.
I mean, we do use in AI's defense, we use it. We have to incorporate it as tools, external tools, because we cannot put up with all the input. We develop scripts and other programs that can help us facilitate all of this, the junk work that we have to do. So I'm not poo-pooing AI that much. We have to use it to our benefit.
Awesome. All right. I have a couple of follow-up questions. One is I'm very pleased to hear that Google, you feel as a media buyer, has a good feedback loop, and that they do take suggestions and ideas earnestly, because you've heard as AI optimizations and kind of like the dumbing down of campaign setups in general, less sales reps out there from the walled gardens in the market, less customer service people, less ad ops, less ways to get in touch with these companies. So what's the methodology in which you can provide feedback? Do you still have a Google rep? Do you guys spend enough money to have one? Or do you have like a forum that you go into and type like a user forum? Like what is the methodology in which you let Google know, things that you like and dislike?
We do have Google reps. We have
Nice.
global Google reps as well. They are definitely, they rotate them so often too, though. But so outside of that, we do have an agency-wide Google rep that listens to us. But I think the part that resonates the most is when we get to talk directly to the engineers and to the not just the reps, because I will complain till the cows come home every time. I'm like, I don't like this, and you need to fix this. And they're like, okay, noted. We'll escalate this. But if I see an engineer in front of me, I'll be like, can we fix this? This is in real life. This doesn't benefit us, and this is what we want to see. So they're very, I'm not going to say excessively responsive, but they at least hear, because if more people complain, they're able to take that feedback. Microsoft has pivoted some of its customer relationships where they welcome feedback as much as possible. If there's something that we want to say from a developer standpoint, they're like, please tell us, because their business is to serve us, right? They want us to work better. So it's a little bit, I wish more organizations were like that, because it's like, if I have a single nitpick, Microsoft will like, great, let me get you in touch with whoever is in charge of that particular type of issue, and they'll find a workaround for it. And it's appreciated. It might only affect like 1% of the population, but it's the fact that they're willing to listen and want their product to improve is just a testament. More people should use Microsoft.
That's great. I wonder if that will be, part of the kind of the unlock of the future is, media properties or media empires as big as Google and Microsoft, ones that take a customer-centric approach and build in partnership with their agency partners, are going to be the ones that win, because they feel seen, heard, and their products probably work better to the specs that these agencies are looking for. It feels like that's a better world than kind of cutting customer service, cutting support people, and kind of building in an ivory tower and thinking that what's supposed to work best for the industry at large.
I have plenty of beef with Google. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they did this slightly sketchy attack where they just inflated costs just because they needed to better fund their AI program, and they were called out on it. And so they're not. I don't think they fully admitted it, but they are like, it just costs are costs. They've done a lot of things in platform that make us side-eye them a lot. We understand why they're doing it, but they're like if the intent is being in the business of making money instead of being in the business of being do no good, do no evil. Is that what they're do no evil? Mm-hmm. That's where I would like them to come back to, instead of just being like, I need to build another data center and we need to get more earnings to support this. But that's it.
I think you're totally right. I mean, I think you go to some of these companies' public earnings statements, and they're like, profits have risen 22%, but inventory is only up by 6%, and growth from a user perspective is flatlined. So, as these platforms become the majority of the media spend, they're now outpacing traditional channels for the first time this year by 51+%. It's easier for them to raise prices because people are so, they're so hooked on these channels. They can't live without them at this point. And they're always going to test incrementality to see how much more profit that they can drive. I think the other component is, like you said, like if you're building the metaverse or wearables or data centers or trying to race to, AGI, these things cost money. And the easiest place you can pull money from is your existing profitable advertising business, which generates the lion's share of income. I think that's pretty funny, or pretty ironic. I mean, at least in some points.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to an interesting question. So, one of the things you talked about at the top of the conversation is, this idea of matching ads to audiences. Mm-hmm. And I think this leads me to a question that's a little bit more about the current state of media buying talent in the industry. 10 years ago, these platforms were very complex. There was a methodology of advertising media buying called multivariate audience testing, right? Where you would not just go into Google advertising or Facebook ads wizard and, set up your start and end date, select a few audiences, put everything into one campaign, and then hope one campaign running on autopilot will go out and find the right audience at the right CPM goal that you were looking for. You would set up maybe 10 different campaigns with 10 different audiences and maybe 50. And then you would kind of follow the pacing and then increase the bid and budgets on the ones that were performing well, decrease the bid and budgets on the ones that weren't performing well, or just eliminate them from the campaign altogether. I know that was very painstaking, laborious work, but it's how you clawed back margin from these platforms as they continued to raise prices. Do you think that skill set is disappearing? Do you think technology will automate it? Will we be able to use technology to essentially claw back some of these profits from the walled gardens as they get more sophisticated, or they get more expensive rather?
There are a lot of mixed feelings about that. First of all, as I was referring to, like having manual campaigns in order to reduce the reliance on what Google considers your target audience. That's one way that we combat the escalating CPCs. I think they just, I don't know how integrated you are in the Google news, but earlier this week, they basically said, your bids are now have to equal what is actually performed. So I'm not going to do it justice, but basically we would have to play with the system with bid optimizations in order to achieve a certain goal. Now they're like, oh, we're going to have your bid optimizations match what is actually performing. So just a simple, if you are having a target ROAS of 20, but it would only have an actual ROAS of 10. They're like, oh, please bring it back down to 10 because that's how you're going to perform. So they're trying to reduce I'm not going to call it I'll call it miscommunication between what we want to happen and what is actually happening. And it's going to be interesting on how we can work around that. I know they want to make it easier. I don't think it's making it easier. I think it's just making it a little more confusing. Many of my team is complaining about this change, but we're going to figure it out. Where I don't think it's going to go away is in alpha and betas, where not in Google, but in OpenAI, that feels very much like Google way back when, the Wild Wild West, where you put something in, you put money in, and you're like, please work. And that's literally what's going on. They're like, raise a bid. Okay, why? You're not giving us anything. So as every platform increases, because we know that, all of these LLMs need to generate revenue. So my prediction is it's going to keep on going. And they're going to either have to have more transparency as they build it, or we're still doing that like way back in 2000, like what's going to work? Let's like, spaghetti, throw spaghetti at it, see what's going to convert. That's what we were doing when we were testing one of the OpenAI ads in pilot. So I don't think it's going away. Even with an LLM driven platform, it's not going away.
That's wild. I heard OpenAI's ads manager is evolving like faster than any other ad product that anybody else has seen come to market in a long time, probably because, these LLMs are, their goal right now is to try and get the AI to the point where the AI can self-improve the code without humans in the loop. Would you agree with that statement, that it's kind of the fastest evolving platform you've seen from an ads manager?
I mean, they come up with updates at least once a week, like announcements, not once a week. I'm being hyperbolic, but it feels like it every Oh, okay. So yes, they are definitely listening because they really, obviously, they want this to stick. I know they have partnerships with other platforms, which I'm going to say isn't very successful right now. So even just advertising within native, I don't want to malign any other platform partnership, but we've just found a lot more success in just going into the, doing the manual campaign and seeing what happens, because to your point, they're listening and they're trying to evolve quickly. So hopefully by the end of the year, everyone's going to be onboarded. It's great. They just launched in Europe. I think 2 days. I think it might be this week. The announcement was yesterday. So we'll see how it goes as they're doing a fully worldwide launch for OpenAI ads.
TBD, especially going up against a highly regulated market with GDPR and all those fun stuff. So,
yeah.
All right. I wanted to go back to the idea around brand. So, brands spend a lot of money and a lot of time with their creative stewards, whether it's their agency partners, et cetera, on their logo, their colors, their type font, their manifesto and brand voice, like you said. There's a lot that goes into making a brand that is distinctive, memorable, shows up in the world in certain ways. I was talking to another leader the other day about the same conversation around creative optimization, and his pushback to me is that he said, well, Dylan, there should be levers of acceptability to hand over your brands. Like when you're doing a Super Bowl campaign, you're probably not going to, let a lot of optimization happen without everybody in the room being 100%, on the same page. But if you have a 100 or 300 performance UGC influencer ads running at the bottom of the funnel, I'm willing to give more creative control over to AI for optimization and exchange my brand guidelines or my brand Bible or how my brand shows up in the world. I can be more flexible in, these lower funnel, less important channels that have less visibility. I'd be curious, your thoughts on that idea that, brands will have to give some degree of control over to AIs in the future from a creative perspective as well, because it's just what's going to be that flexibility is going to be required in the new way of buying. Be curious your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think they are turning more and more to it. The cost benefit analysis of leveraging AI to create any of these videos versus having a full 3-day shoot, et cetera, is definitely, they look at the bottom line. They understand that it's much easier to do that. When we work with clients, when we're talking about video generation, our agency adheres to a pretty quote unquote strict guideline of where we want to showcase human first and not have everything completely AI generated. There's a team in our organization that does a lot of video creation, and it does take an insane amount of time. AI video generation for our clients. So it's not that it won't get easier, but it definitely it's not going to go away, especially when you're combating the volume that people who have no interest in supporting your brand are going to generate AI created videos. Like, what do you want them to win over the message you want to portray? So you have to control it in some way, because deepfakes, when they first talked about it, you're like, that's crazy, it's never going to happen. And here it is, like 2 years later, 10 years later, whenever it started, you're like, this is not going away. So they have to be, both brands and creators have to be more agile in leveraging the platforms that allow them to create all these AI generated videos, but with guardrails. Obviously, all the take-home message is guardrails, human placed, or yes, computer placed. So yes, not going away.
I'd be curious how you've seen performance impacted by AI videos. I was talking to another creative the other day, and the idea of AI watermarking came up, where if you post a piece of content that's AI generated and that triggers a watermark, young people, especially in the key demo of Gen Z and millennials, they have this more Pavlovian response to AI generated content. It's kind of the same sentiment that you see on college campuses when technology executives get booed at commencement speech. There's an authenticity piece, maybe a fear piece. I don't know exactly what's causing it, but kids don't like AI generated ads. And I've heard some marketers say that this shows up in the performance metrics. Be curious your take there.
So this goes back to, what does the platform require versus what do you think we think is resonant? There are some enhancements which we are okay with. It's if you want you're only given a vertical video and they need to make it horizontal.
It's like sizing stuff.
Sizing.
Yeah.
If you need to extend it by a second or two in order for it to fit into the algorithm and the restrictions, those are acceptable. By and large, I agree when we look at the performance between what is brand owned versus, we'll call them enhanced. The brand owned always outperforms the enhanced. I shouldn't make such a grand claim. I haven't done a meta-analysis of all of that, but by and large, the platform will show the original assets over AI generated. Going back to our ethos of human first, if we're going to do creatives, if it's a human should be involved as much as possible as a face of the video, unless it's something we can't get around. If it's something where we have to, what are they called? Retouchers. Retouchers existed for forever. Everything has been enhanced with filters, right? If it's marginal fixing that is still holds true to the intent, the original intent, we are okay with that. I also have a healthy mistrust of AI generated videos as well, and I'm not a college kid, obviously. I'm way past that, so I don't think that it will ever go away. I fully embrace the watermarks that platforms are putting, because who was it? Was it Claude or Perplexity? One of them definitely, everything has to be watermarked with AI generated, because especially without trusting the source, it's going to degrade the trust in the brand. So I don't think in any case we need to mimic or have like full dupes, or as they call it, dupe. But there can be some level of AI enhanced imagery that is acceptable to all parties, the viewer, the consumer, as well as the brand.
Amazing. Well, that was an awesome deep dive on this topic of AI optimization, both in creative and placements from the media agency perspective. So thank you for giving me that. If you don't mind, I'd like to just roll into some other questions.
Sure.
We might dip into AI, we might dip out of it, but more kind of just based on your background in general.
Sure.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's talk about organic and paid search. So with search engines moving heavily towards AI generated summaries and zero-click searches, how are you evolving search ops at Cosmo5 to keep brands visible when a lot of people aren't leaving these LLM chatbots to even go look at brands during the search intent window of their consumer funnel?
So if you're talking from an organic perspective or from a paid perspective,
I think it's maybe you could touch on both, but just the idea that 60% of all searches now in these LLMs don't end up with a click, or 60% of Google searches don't end up with a click now. So people aren't clicking on search ads as often in Google, and they're not going to websites until much later in the buyer's journey.
So we have to play with the tools that we're given is the short answer. For the most part, it goes back to the fact that OpenAI is making ads, Gemini, Copilot, all of them are integrating ads as much as possible because they recognize that if they lose their money source, they're going to be screwed over. And we have to play in that. This is where we also argue that if they're making us go into AI mode, Gemini, all of these sources, they have to give us that information. And it wasn't until this past June that they started integrating that into GA4 data, so you can see AI, what they call AI assistant, so you can see the source now. They have it present in Google Search Console. So that's from a paid perspective. We have to pay to play in order to make sure that we're within those. Agentic commerce, as you said before, is another thing that we have to be on the cusp as well. We're partnering with our brands in order to make sure that they have that same voice, because we know that fundamentally they might not ever reach the website. We've noticed this from our SEO discipline, and more brands are adopting us to do geo services, generative engine optimization, because they know that being cited and being listed as an authority within those platforms is critical in order to maintain that, and the traffic as well as the information and impressions, so that their brand still resonates. So we definitely have a full funnel approach to search in order to make sure that we are present as they keep on evolving how the search engine is delivering both their organic as well as their paid results. So yes, it's necessary evil, or a great boon time to figure out how to get in, get cited.
So you talked about new opportunities for PPC inside of ChatGPT and Gemini. How much are you balancing traditional Google ads and PPC strategies with these new opportunities to advertise inside of a platform like a ChatGPT? Is it a meaningful percentage of spend that's being moved over to ChatGPT that could be in threat from so much of the pay-per-click generally going to Google? But then, you mentioned Gemini is now also allowing for at least visibility on how, that is impacting the traditional PPC buys within Google. I'd be curious just like how much of an impact is it on budgets of like moving over to like a ChatGPT? Is it enough to, where Google should be paying attention?
No. Short answer is no.
Nice.
There are many reasons for this. So when ChatGPT launched its pilot with other partners, other platforms, they had this exorbitant this is your minimum spend, which was grossly misguided. They wanted like $100K a month spent in order to participate. And everyone was like, you're crazy. No one's going to do that. There are brands that did it. They were like, this is a waste of our time. The performance did not pull through. The other reason why Google has yet to be scared is because ChatGPT ads only are served to Go or free users. So anyone who has a paid account, they're still going to have free traffic and interaction from that. You just need a strong geo program in order to make sure that you're showing up in the paid versions of ChatGPT. So the penetration, I don't know the percentage of users who are using Go or free versus all the paid. The penetration is not there yet. Google and Microsoft, on the other hand, have everywhere they are, they serve an ad. There's no paid Google SERP, right? That will never. They're like, that's dumb. We will never do that. There are paid Gemini accounts, for example, but the majority of their users are just going to use google.com, and eventually they might put ads in the paid versions of Gemini, but for now, most people are using Gemini. They are served ads and they know that it's going to benefit them. So until the usage for ChatGPT equals that of Google, no, it's only a test and learn at this point. It's not yet, okay, let's put 50% of our budget from into ChatGPT.
Interesting. So it's essentially an experimentation ledger at this moment.
Yes.
All right. Building high-performing media operations teams requires balancing technical analytics skills with creative strategy. What are the core traits that you're hiring for in performance marketers today, and has that changed over the last year or so?
I think, it goes back to, are we going to be out of jobs? I can't answer that. We're truthfully, like, we're still the nature of the business is that junior teams are outsourced. We look for skills, but it has to be in less expensive neighborhoods. We're gonna put it, because those are skills that are essential, but we're a global organization. We work worldwide with all of our teams, so we have different team members in that. So when we're looking for who fits in the agency, it actually still runs the gamut. We need data analysts. We still need operations. We still need hands-on keyboard kids. It just, where they're physically located has changed is all. We just have a very active chat platform.
And in that regard, so you're talking about being truly international, so being able to hire comparable talent in other countries that are less expensive than the US. Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. Which is unfortunate, because it was great just like 10 years ago. It's like, oh, everyone was in the same room, but now it's like, what COVID has taught us is that we can still work well together, just in screens, like we're doing right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe it'll make a flatter world to some degree, to the detriment of, I suppose, the U.S. or the West maybe in general, but I think it does flatten the world a bit. All right, looking ahead to the next 3 to 5 years, what will be the single biggest shift in how performance agencies plan, buy, and execute?
Oof. I think, are there engagements that are consultancies versus actual hands-on keyboard? I think there will be a shift to that. We saw that when different large companies were like, should we bring everything in-house? Should we, institutionalize our best practices? I don't think that will go away. I think the numbers will definitely dwindle. You can see the massive layoffs that are going on. There will always be a need for the human to interact and be able to safeguard that, whether or not it's one person managing like 100 accounts. That's, that might actually happen. But the traditional agency model is definitely evolving, but it's not evolving as quickly as we think it is, even though larger companies, you see all of the like big six just cutting people wholesale. It makes the opportunities for the brands, they kind of tend to, all the big sixes now, they're now competing for smaller margins because they want to survive. So that's where it gets a little bit more crowded. But I don't think the people within the agency, they might be reduced in numbers, but they're still going to exist in some form, either by being practitioners or being consultants.
Yeah, it's like now you get laid off from Omnicom, and then you take a client with you and you start a 3-person consultancy. It's like, the indie scene, even from the perspective of just like solopreneur, I don't think has ever been more robust. It's so the relationships are really the currency of the day.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. I mean, my boss is still in conversations with and still friends with all of their, former teammates and their former colleagues. It's all about the human to human interaction that builds that trust, so that people are able to rely on you still. So hopefully.
Love it. Well, Sandra, this has exceeded my expectations for this first conversation around the idea of AI inside of media buying and the optimization conversation. So thank you so much. It was very insightful. If folks want to follow along with your thought leadership or get in touch with the agency, where do you want to send people to follow up?
Just go to Cosmo5.com and there's an info you can reach out. Or I have LinkedIn that I don't really use, but I exist there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And for those of you at home, if you're watching the show for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe. If you're listening, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you happening listening on is how we find a larger audience organically. So don't forget to do that. And last but not least, if there is a client out there in advertising world that is thinking about this idea of performance versus brand and how much control to give to the robots, somebody in agency land, or just someone who you think would benefit from the conversation that I had with Sandra today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will wish you a great day. Thanks.